At Intrepid Farms, home of world-famous Morgan horses and equestrian museum, we're going to introduce you to Arthur Perry, or as he is better known, Mr. Morgan. Arthur, when you look at your beautiful grounds here, it's hard to imagine that you actually started at the bottom of the Morgan horse industry, didn't you?
The Morgan horse when I was about 10, 12 maybe. And it's been an upward spiral ever since.
Now, I heard that little birds told me that when other little boys were playing with fire engines and police, you were playing horse.
That's right. I was the horse that everybody had to catch.
Now, tell me about the Morgan horse. What is it about Morgans that everybody loves?
Well, what people need to understand that the Morgan horse is the first and only true American breed of horse.
That's right.
And started in 1879, I believe. I'm correct. And but all Morgans today descend from one single stallion, Justin Morgan.
Okay, and actually, while we're on the subject, I know that you went to visit Justin Morgan's gravesite.
Oh, yeah.
And you found it in not very good condition, am I right?
Well, it's located on a farm in Vermont, and it's really out of the public eye. It's not accessible to the public eye. So when people come to visit, they have to go down through fields, and so I took it upon myself to make sure that it gets taken care of, landscaped and maintained, and I cleaned the marble, and so it's maintained every year now.
That's wonderful.
It's a task that I
I'm
took.
sure much appreciated.
Well, I hope so. I don't know.
Now let's talk about your own breeding program. We're standing in front of some beautiful pictures of your own horses. How did you get into it, and what was the start for you?
Well, the start for me was a horse called Auckland Leader. That was the first Morgan horse that I ever saw, and it was love at first sight, if you want to call it that.
Yes.
And I have a son of Auckland Leader who was Barty Invader, who's my foundation stallion. And he sort of put me on the map in 1968. I bought him as a 4-year-old, and he lived to be 28 years of age. And so a lot of my offspring come from this stallion.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And your current breeding program includes Immortal Beloved.
Well, she is a daughter, she's a granddaughter of Barty Invader out of Intrepid Marlena, and I bred the two of them, and they produced Immortal Beloved, and while I owned her, I don't own her presently, she had 2 consecutive world champions. Since that time, she has garnered 6 more world champions, so she's one of the best show horses that I ever raised. And then I bred her to Byzantine, and I got my present stallion, Intrepid Behold, who is on the property here.
Now we're interviewing you in your equine museum, and I was so honored to see this, because what a treat. Now, did you just start collecting a few things and it grew and grew? How did this start?
No, well, I started collecting things that had to do with horses. And primarily, it had nothing to do with Morgans. But as I progressed and I began to learn the history of the Morgan horse, I have collected a lot of Morgan horse memorabilia. And it has just sort of mushroomed and grown, and
I can see. It's pretty special.
It is pretty special.
I want to ask you about a couple things in the museum.
Happy trails to you until we meet again.
Okay, Arthur, so we're standing in front of my favorite personal pieces in your museum. There's so many, but this is Dale and Roy Rogers' traveling suit, I understand.
Well, yes, when they would tour the country, visiting theaters and venues or whatever it is, these are the traveling suits that they wore. And these were made by Nudie in 1952.
Who's famous for his costumes. Do I call them
Yes,
costumes or clothing?
he dressed almost every major star and non-movie star that we have.
And how did you happen to come upon these?
Well, high noon auction I went to in Mesa, Arizona, and these came up for sale. And I thought, well, I'll never be able to own them, but I'll bid on them. So I did. I bid. First of all, Roy's came up, and I bid on it, and it got up to be $2,500. And the gavel came down. So I own Roy Rogers. A little while later, Dale's outfit came up, and everyone around me said, now you cannot separate these suits.
Right. That's
They
right.
have to stay together. They've
They're a
been
pair.
together and they have to stay together. So I bid on that one and it stopped at $2,500.
Wow.
So I got the pair of them for the $5,000, and they've been in the collection ever since.
Love me tender, love me sweet, never let me go.
Of course, Arthur, now that I've talked to you about costumes, I have to ask you about this very special costume that you're showing me.
Yeah, well, this costume belonged to Elvis Presley, and it was made for the movie Love Me Tender.
Okay.
And although I don't have a photograph of him wearing it, how he kept to come by it was the lady in this picture had won a chance to go to the studios and meet
okay.
Elvis.
Yeah.
And like all young women, she was enamored by him.
Of course.
And in her search to have something of Elvis, she ended up with this suit, which was bought from one of his managers. And
Yeah.
she called me and said, you know, I have a nudie suit too. I said, well, that's interesting. And she said, well, it belonged to Elvis Presley. Well, I said, I'll come and look at it. And I did. I went and looked at it, and the price was reasonable, and so I bought it. That's why it's in the collection.
Yeah.
I can't even wear this. I can't get into this jacket.
I don't think I could
Yeah.
either.
No, I think you could. Would you like to try the suit, the jacket on?
I'd love to. That's fantastic.
Made by Nudie.
And it's such a great story of how you
Yeah.
came to get it. She
Well,
just called you and
That's how I got it. How do you like that? It fits you perfect almost.
do you think I could just walk out and you wouldn't even notice that
I
I'm
would notice.
Yeah, I love it. Wow. I'd like to ask you what your favorite piece is.
Weather vanes are some of the oldest pieces that I have in my collection, and they're of Morgan horses. You can see by looking around, I have a little bit of everything.
Well, I know the American Morgan Horse Association is very grateful to you. And one of the things I wanted to share is that you're such an ambassador that I understand that you not only promote the Morgan horse through your beautiful breeding program, but you volunteer for so many things.
Right, yeah.
And
Well,
you've been named Man of the Year
Right.
and just have so many honors.
I've been very lucky, and the Morgan horse has been very nice to me, and I served on the American Morgan Horse Association Board of Directors for some 16 years, and I'm still pretty active on the Archives Committee, which is a very favorite committee of mine because it deals with the history of the Morgan horse.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm blessed, I guess.
Yes, you are. Well, I'm so happy to have taken the time to meet you, and I know that our interview together will inspire people to learn more about the Morgan
Oh,
horse.
wow, and there's a lot to be learned, believe me.
Good. Well, thank you so much for your time.
You're entirely welcome.